What is FFP and SFP, and what are the differences between FFP and SFP scopes? Hi, I'm Tina from Target Tamers, and today I'm going to answer these questions and show you some video footage looking through first focal plane scopes versus second focal plane scopes. I'll also briefly go over some pros and cons of each. Here we go. What is FFP and what does it mean on a rifle scope? FFP stands for first focal plane, but is also known as front focal plane. This refers to the reticle itself. In a FFP scope, the reticle sits inside the erector tube but in front of the magnifying lens. So when you increase and decrease magnification, the reticle follows suit and becomes larger or smaller in size. The second thing you'll learn about FFP reticles is that they have constant subtension. Now, subtension is the amount of space or area that is covered up by the crosshairs. So because the reticle parallels what is happening at the magnification ring, you will always have constant subtension that will never change, regardless if you're on low 3 times power or high 20 times power. This means that if your reticle has holdover points, you can accurately use them at any point over the magnification range. Why do FFP scopes cost more than SFP scopes? Well, quality made first focal plane reticles are usually laser etched onto the glass, and then it needs to be placed into the scope with exacting precision. This is one large reason why FFP scopes cost more than SFP scopes. FFP pros and cons. Because of the constant subtension of an FFP reticle, you can use it for holding over at any point across the magnification range. And because at the higher powers, the reticle gets larger in size, it can be easy to use, more visible to see, and it can potentially improve accuracy because you can see those small hash marks or dots, whatever it is that your reticle has, it can help you see them better. Now, they also allow for very fast decisions for holding over or for correction shots, especially important in long-range shooting and competition. However, FFP reticles do make the overall cost of the scope more expensive. At low powers, the reticle may be difficult to see because those center crosshairs may be too thin. And again, because the reticle may be too small to see in the lower powers, it can be even more difficult to use in low light conditions or against brushy or timber environments, although illumination may be able to alleviate some of these issues. Lastly, because subtension is constant, it can cover up aiming points or kill zones on very small targets, especially when at a great distance. What is SFP and what does it mean on a rifle scope? SFP stands for second focal plane, but is also known as rear focal plane. The reticle sits in between the magnification assembly and the eyepiece, so it's behind the magnification assembly and is not affected by what happens at the powering. Basically, what this means is that the reticle stays the same. It remains static, regardless of any increases or decreases to the magnification. When it comes to subtension, it does the opposite of FFP reticles. When you change magnification, subtension is also changing. So when you increase magnification, the target gets larger and those crosshairs take up less space on the target. When you decrease magnification, the target gets smaller and those crosshairs take up more space on the target. So because subtension is always changing, any reticle holdovers will only be accurate at one predetermined setting. Who determines that setting? The manufacturer. Be sure to check the owner's manual for what this predetermined setting is. It is usually max magnification. So what does this mean? For example, on a 3 to 9 times rifle scope, any holdover points or BDC reticles will only be accurate at 9 times magnification. SFP pros and cons. Now, SFP reticles have been around for a long time, so many are familiar and comfortable with them. SFP scopes are also cheaper than FFP scopes. And because the reticle remains unchanged, regardless of the magnification, they're usually always very highly visible. This is extremely important in low light conditions, when using it on low power, or even when you're in brushy or thick timber terrains without illumination, and when you are aiming on very small target, especially when at a great distance. However, because subtension is constantly changing whenever you change magnification, any holdover points that you have on your reticle will only be accurate at that one predetermined setting, which is usually max magnification. This can be detrimental for some shooting applications, but for those who always dial in, it's less of a consequence. How do you tell the differences between FFP and SFP scopes? Well, when we're talking about FFP and SFP scopes, we're actually talking about the reticle, where it is placed and how it behaves in relation to a magnification. So there are no outside physical differences to be able to tell one scope from the other. If you're looking at a rifle scope in person, your best bet is to pick it up, look through it, and turn that magnification ring. If the reticle gets larger or smaller in size, it's an FFP scope. If that reticle remains the same, it's an SFP scope. Now, if you're looking online, you will find this information in the specs, owner's manual, or in the description. Which is best for you? To choose the right focal plane reticle for you means to evaluate your intended shooting applications. And another consideration is the magnification range you'll be using most of the time. For most target shooting, hunting, close range shooting, and if you frequently sit in those low power ranges, you can absolutely get by with an SFP scope. For speed, long range performance, competition, and if you often sit in those high power ranges, an FFP scope is the way to go. Now that you know what FFP and what SFP is, the differences and how they work, you're in a better position to make an informed decision. Now, if you want to know which to choose for hunting, long range, for the AR-15 and more, check out the full write-up. I'll put that in a link in the description below. Thanks for tuning in. As always, like, subscribe, and get outside.